Hello and welcome back to the Consistory of the Coelc YouTube channel. I'm your host for this video, Reverend Zabel of St John's Evangelical Lutheran Church, located in Dalby, Queensland, Australia. In this video, we're going to be continuing my series on the role of female laity in the church, and we're going to be wrapping up our discussions on women's suffrage in the church by discussing the topic of female observers. So what is an observer? An observer is a person that does not vote at the committee, but is able to sit and observe the going-ons of the committee. And the question is, are women permitted to do this? Are women permitted to come and sit in on all the meetings and listen? Or are they meant to be, forbidden from coming to these meetings? So if we have an AGM or a committee meeting, are women permitted to come and observe? Or are they restricted by scriptures to not be allowed to observe? Now, I would argue that there is nothing in the scriptures that would forbid them from observing. And this is not just the position of the coelc. In Australia, the Australian Evangelical Lutheran Church and the Evangelical Lutheran Congregations of the Reformation, two church bodies that also reject women's voting in the church, do also permit women to sit in as observers at congregational meetings. And just for the sake of this video, Pastor Gavin Winter of the ELCR, in his paper on the position of women in the church, does address this topic of female observers at congregational meetings. He writes, "Sometimes the question is asked, may a woman be present at voters' meetings of the congregation? To this we reply, that nowhere does Scripture forbid this, provided that she does not break the principles previously stated. In fact, if there is a matter which is of particular interest to the woman in the congregation, it may be of benefit for them to hear the actual discussion and decisions that are taken. However, if women are present, they must be especially careful not in any way to influence discussion through their words, gestures, facial expressions, or any other means. In connection with this, we state that the following points for the congregation should be remembered. The first point is that the voting members should explain to the other members of the congregation the happenings in the congregational meetings. The pastor or elders should take it in hand to inform the lady members who do not have a husband who is a voting member, so that they are aware of any decisions made by the congregation. 2. If a woman has a matter she wishes to present to the meeting, this may be done either through a male member, her husband, the pastor, or another member, or she may do so in writing. According to the law of love, these views should be given consideration by the congregation. 3. It is of value if an agenda is drawn up for the meeting, so that the matters coming up for discussion can be seen by the women, and they can discuss these matters and express their opinions to their husbands. And 4. The woman has a right to express her valid objections to the calling of a pastor, a discipline case, or a doctrinal position taken by the congregation. But this matter must be expressed outside the congregational meeting." So in other words, women can sit in on congregational meetings as observers, but their presence is not to impact the will of the congregation. As we discussed in previous videos, the reason why women are not to vote at these meetings is because that would be an authoritative position, as it would affect the will and direction of the congregation. So if women are to observe these meetings, they may do so, but they are not to exert their will on the going-ons of the meeting. Therefore, they are not to have speaking positions as part of this meeting. If they do have questions and concerns, they should raise them outside of the meeting. So for example, in 1 Corinthians 14, when Paul says that women are not to speak in the church, he then says that they have questions they may ask their husbands at home. We also see the situation in the book of Acts when Apollos gets up and is preaching, and because he does not know the fullness of the gospel, because he only knows of the baptism of John, after he is done preaching, Priscilla, a woman, and Aquila, a layman, pull him aside and further explain to him better the teachings of Christ in a private setting. We discussed this in previous videos on women preaching and teaching, where we said inside the church, women are not to do so, but they can do outside of the church in private settings. Likewise, when it comes to congregational meetings, if the women are present, they are to sit in quietness and submission. If they have issues they would like to raise, they can do so outside of the meeting and raise their issues with either the pastor, their husband, or any of the other male members who would be participating in these congregational meetings. So, I hope that helps answers the question on women being observers in congregational meetings. I've been your host, Reverend Jake Zabel. Goodbye and God bless.